Sarah's Stampin' Retreat. Today we're going to be making something a little bit different. I wanted to make a little box to put some of my embellishments in, just to store them. I just thought I'd make a nice one that will look pretty on my desk so that I can have them to hand rather than just kind of like shoving them away, because it's something that I use all the time, so I want to have them to hand. So I'm going to use these gorgeous Bloom Where You're Planted papers. So I'm just going to show you them quickly. So we've got this lovely one with the pots on. We'll cut some of those out later with this on the back. Then we've got just pots on their own with this on the back. And you could add these kind of succulents and leaves into the pots. And that one's got this on the back. They've all got kind of textury type ones on the back. We've got this one that's got that on the back. You can see I don't have very much of this left because we're going to use a lot of this for today, and I've used it for different projects before as well. That's got that on the back. And then we've got this one with this on the back. And you get 2 each of those sheets in the pack. And then because I want it to be quite sturdy, we're also going to upcycle some of this card. You get a lot of this in the packaging from Stampin' Up. So this one is from some foil sheets. So you get them often in the back of the foil sheets and sometimes in the back of the pattern papers as well. But you could use any kind of packaging that you've got at home, just quite strong. You can see it's quite a strong board. It's quite sturdy. So I've cut these to size. These are 5 inches by 4 inches. So I've got 2 pieces that are 5 inches by 4 inches. Those will be the top and the bottom of my box. And I've got one that is 5 inches by 3 inches, and that will be the back. So I'm going to pop those to the side. Then I'm going to use this one just to show you how I'm going to cut them. Because I have to say that I was quite surprised that the Stampin' Up trimmer worked to cut something this thick. So it's a really good quality trimmer. And actually, while I was getting out the stuff for this, I found some spare blades that I bought when I bought this trimmer, which must have been, I bought it when it came out, so I'd say that it was at least a year ago. I'm not sure exactly when it came out, I can't remember. But I've not had to replace one blade yet, so I've got 4 spare blades because they come in a pack of 4 in the cupboard, and I've not even used one yet, so it kind of stands testament to how good a quality trimmer it is, and also the fact that it can get through this board. You'll see in a second that we do have to turn it over because the depth of the blade isn't actually big enough to get through the board, but it actually slices through it really nicely. So I'm going to use the full 12 inches of this board, and then I'm just going to cut across it at 3 inches. So I'm just going across a few times because it is a thick board, and then you can see it's cut most of the way through, but it's not quite, the blade's not quite deep enough to go through. So I'm just turning it over and lining it up at 3 inches again, and all I need is just one pass just to cut through. There's just a small bit kind of hanging on this side. So then, because this board is too thick to score, what I'm going to do is I'm actually just going to really lightly use my trimmer to kind of almost cut a score line. So I'm just going to be cutting part way through the cardstock. I don't want to cut all the way through this time because I'm more scoring than cutting. And I'm going to do that at 3 3/4 inches. So I'm just lightly cutting through. I'm not pushing down. I'm just pulling it across so that you get this kind of, do you see it's just gone through like the top layers of the card? It hasn't gone all the way through. So I've done that at 3 3/4, and then I also want to do it at 8 1/4. So you've got this extender piece on here so that you can measure bigger lengths. So I'm just doing that at 8 1/4, and again I'm just going to lightly push it across so it just kind of scores it rather than cuts it. So that then will be the piece that goes in the middle. That's then all my large pieces cut. So I want to cover those in some of our lovely pattern papers. So I'm going to use this paper for the outside of the box. So I want that on the outside, so I'm going to turn this over and stick these inside. So I'm going to do the top, then the middle, and then the bottom. And I want just a small gap in between each, just so that they can bend round. Because you see, once it bends round, then they go next to each other. They just need a small gap in between. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take one of our adhesive sheets and I'm just going to cut a piece that will fit this. And then one that will fit this. And to be fair, I could do this with my trimmer, but I'm just doing it with my scissors. So then I'm going to just stick those onto my piece of board, and you've got these score lines in between so that you can, I'm just going to take one panel off and I'm going to stick that down, and then I'm going to take the next panel off and I'm going to just smooth that as I go. I want a nice smooth finish. And then I can take that off. So. You can see I've stuck that on slightly wonky, so I'm just going to, in fact I might just bend it around the corners. Okay, so I just want to place these on here just so that I get the layout right, because I don't want too much at one end and not enough at the other end. You can see if I'd done it like that, I wouldn't have enough at this end. So I'm just going to move it all up a little bit. So I'm happy with that. So I'm just going to stick these on now. I'm just being really careful before I glue that down. And I'm just burnishing this on just before I take the backing off, because it's almost kind of a layer of glue behind here, as opposed to some brands have almost like a kind of sheet. You can see this is almost like a layer of glue that comes off. So I want to burnish it first. And then I'm just leaving that slight gap between the two pieces. And you could do this with glue as well if you don't have the adhesive sheets. I'm using the adhesive sheets because I don't want any bubbles in the paper. I'm just leaving that small gap between the two pieces again. So there we go. So I'm just going to check and make sure that those go up, which they do, which is great. That's what I wanted them to do. So now we want to make sure that we get a really nice finish. So I'm just going to fold the corners over like that. And I'm just burnishing that, and I'm also burnishing along that side there. So I'm just doing it with my fingernails. You could do it with a bone folder as well. And I want to do that on all the corners. And I'm also just going to just rub over those joins just to make sure that those are nice and tight as well. So then I'm just going to glue each of these corners, and I'm just pressing that down really well so we get a really nice finish. Okay, and once we've done all the corners, we want to do the sides. So I'm just going to fold that up. And I'm just going to push along those edges. And I'm going to fold that over. And I'm just going to use my nail. And again, if you've got a bone folder, then you could use that instead. And then I'm just really working that so that we get a nice seam. And then I'm going to glue that down. And then also, as it's gluing, I just want to make sure that I'm opening and closing that as well, so that I don't want any kind of little bubbles or anything coming up. Just want that to go nicely into those joints. So I'm happy with that now because it opens and closes nicely, look. I'll do this end. I find it much easier just to work that seam before I close it. Before I glue it, sorry. Just because it gives a nice crisp edge, which is hard to get once the glue's on. So I'm just pushing that down. And I'm just using my ordinary Tombow glue for this because it is a nice strong glue. Then I'm going to do the other side. And then again, I'm just going to make sure that those are nicely pushed into these gaps. That's it. Do you see how it was going upwards before and then I pushed it into the gap and now it looks nice and neat? That's that one done. And now I'm just going to do, oops, I haven't bent this end. Let's bend the end first. And then you can see this will be the outside of our box and it looks really nice finished, doesn't it? So I'm going to put that to one side a second. And then I'm going to take this piece and you'll see that this piece is the same width as the 12 by 12 piece. So I'm actually just going to trim just a small amount off each end. So I'm just going to trim 1/4 of an inch off each end. I tell you what, doing this with the trimmer, I'm so happy that the trimmer manages to get through it because it's so much easier, or I think it is, than doing it with a ruler and a scalpel, which is how I'd normally do it. So everything's going this way, so we want this bit on the outside, so we want to stick it down like this. So I'm going to do it in the same way as I did before. So I'm going to trim down an adhesive sheet. You actually get 12 of these in the pack, so you get a lot. And I'm just going to cut those down. I just think it's worth using the adhesive sheets rather than the glue, even though glue is cheaper, because you just get that nice, really nice finish to it. And I just think because it's going on my desk, it's going to be something that's kind of on show. I just want a really lovely finish. So let's pop that on there. And I can just peel off this panel and stick it down. And then I'm going to do this, and then I'm going to make sure that goes down nicely too, so we've got no bubbles. I'm just going to pop it around the end as well. And then I'm just going to burnish it nicely all over. And I'm going to take this backing off. And then I'm going to place it on here. And then I'm just going to bend that round. So I don't want my card to buckle. We just need to stretch that paper round, but we don't want it to crack. So I'm just folding it really gently There we go. And then as I open it back out again, I'm just going to push that down in the seams. So then what I'm going to do is I'm going to just do our corners again. So just the same way as we did on the other part of the box. And let's go and glue all those corners. So then I'm going to do the ends. Then I'm going to do the sides, so I'm just going to fold that up and over like we did on the other piece. And just every side I'm just pressing down with my thumbnail. So I'm just smoothing it along the edge of the cardstock first, then I'm bending it over. It helps to get a nice clean line there. And then I'm just going to glue. Now I just want a thin layer of glue, but I do want it all over so that we get a nice finish to it. If you don't want big blobs, because that will make the paper buckle, you just want a nice thin layer. And you want to just work that in. And then before I move on to the other side, I'm just pushing that into the seams because we want it to go like this. So we want it at right angles, so it needs to sit nicely at right angles. So I'm just pushing that into the seam. Can you see the mark I'm making with my thumbnail? And again, if you don't have thumbnails, just use a bind folder or the edge of your scissors or something like that instead. So it's going to sit like that, so we want it to look nice while it's sitting like that. And I'm going to do the other side. And again, a nice thin layer all over. So I'm just working it into those seams again. And then that looked really nice like that. So the way that it's going to sit is that will be like that. And then that will go around there. So that will be glued to the bottom. And then that will flap over the top. So it will sit like that. So what I want to do is I want to pop on some ribbon so that then when it closes I can have a ribbon closure. So I've got this Forever Evergreen chevron ribbon, so I'm going to use that today. And then I'm going to use some of my tear and tape, and I'm actually going to use the grid on here to make sure that I get it in the middle. So here I've got from 0 to 5, so I'm going to put my tape on at just this 2.5 line. I'm just going to put it a little way back. And I'm going to do the same at this end as well. So I'm just going to pop some ribbon on here. And I'm going to leave quite a bit so I can tie a nice bow. Always chop ribbon at an angle. And then I'm just going to measure that to get the same amount the other end. I don't need to chop this end at an angle just because it's going to be stuck down, so the tape will stop it from fraying it, and it'll also be inside. Okay, so then I've got my ribbon on. So next I'm just going to pop some paper on this side of this. So I'm going to decorate the inside of my box with this paper. And it's going to go like this, but I want it to attach to the bottom of my box. So I've got 2 pieces here that measure 4 by 7.5 inches, and I'm just going to put them both so that they're just under this line here, but they're hanging off the end, and they're hanging off this end as well, because I need the paper to go further than the 12 inches, so I need 2 pieces. So I'm just going to do it like this, and I'm just going to overlap them a little bit. So I'm going to glue them like that. I'll glue them together first. In fact, I might just pop a piece of tape on to put them together, because that'll hold a little bit better. Or it'll hold faster anyway. It's all about fast on the videos. So let's just pop that on there. I'm using quite a busy print, so you won't notice too much where the seam is once it's in the box, and it's in the inside as well. So I've got these couple of scraps of adhesive sheet that fit on here really nicely, so I'm just going to use those up. I'm just popping those on there. And then I'm just going to let that go around the end a bit as well, so we get a bit of sticky on the end, which we don't need for now, but it'll help us stick it later. So I'm just going to take this off. And then I'm going to pop this on. So I want a nice neat line at the top, and then it's going to hang off either side and off the bottom. And then I just want to make sure that it sits nicely in those folds. So I'm just pushing it nicely into there, and I'm going to do the same on this one here. And that will sit like that. So then what I want to do is, this will be the bit that attaches to the base. So I want to just cut just slightly on an angle towards this corner, and then I'm going to cut slightly on an angle up to here as well. And then I'm just going to cut a little triangle out where each of these bends goes. So I'm just cutting that off where it bends. And the same here. And then I'm just going to cut this corner out here as well. So I'm just doing a slight angle up to there, and a slight angle into here. Okay, so now we've got a piece that looks like this. And I just want to bend all of these exactly where that ends. So I'm going to bend it this way first, so I know where it needs to bend, and then I'm going to just stand that up. I'm going to press that down here. And the same with this one, I'm just pressing that in. And the same with this one, I'm going to press it in here too. Now I'm going to turn this on its end, and I'm going to press this in here as well. Probably can't see this one as well, but I'm just doing the same. And I'm going to do the same on this end as well. So then I've got those all bending just where they need to. And just right along that bottom edge. So then I need this to sit like this at right angles. So this will glue onto the back of the box like this, and then this will glue onto the bottom of the box. So I want this to be nicely at right angles, and I'm just going to have to push that along a bit for that to happen. So I think the best thing to do with this is to glue it this way, and then I can just push it in. So I'm going to add a bit of glue just in here. And along this side too. And then I'm just going to make sure this is at right angles, and then I can use the grid lines on my paper to make sure it's at right angles as well, or you could put it against a book or something like that. You just want to make sure that it's nice and square, and then you'll just want to glue the two flaps together. So I'm just gluing that corner there, and then I'm going to do the same with this one here. I just want a nice right angle, and then I'm going to push that down, and that will hold in place like that. So then the next thing I want to do is glue that onto here. So it doesn't matter which is the lid and which is the base, but you want that to slot into there. So I'm going to put glue on this flap here, on this flap here, and then all over this bottom piece as well. And then I'm just going to pull that back up, and I'm going to just pop this on. I'm trying to make sure that it's nice and central. I've got a bit of wiggle room. I just want to make sure that it's nice and central. And I'm gluing those back pieces onto the back there, and I push the bottom pieces into the bottom. I'm just trying to make sure it's all even all the way round. So just take a couple of seconds just to put that on nicely. And then when we finish, that will tie like that. I'm just pressing all this down nicely. So then the final thing that I want to do is I want this piece of paper to go inside and on here, just to tidy up that rest of the box. So this piece measures, you can see it's just under 10.5 inches and just under 4.5 inches. So I want it to fit inside there. And you can see I've not actually put mine on very squarely. It's a bit of an angle, but I'm not too worried about that. So I'm just going to press this into the box, and then I'm going to just run my finger along the back where it reaches the back, and then I'm going to push it up, and then I'm going to just squeeze it like that where it meets there. So I'm just going to make those folds in there. And I'm just going to pop it in again just to test it again. Make sure those are okay. And that's fine, I think. So then I'm just going to put some glue all the way over the back of this. And then I'm just going to press that in. I'm going to make sure it's lined up nicely. I'm going to press it all along the top as well. And then I'm just going to work that paper into this joint, because I want this to be able to fall forwards and backwards, and for the paper not to crack. So I'm just keeping on running my thumb along that, and then folding it forwards, folding it back, running my thumb along again, folding it forwards, folding it back. And there we go. So you can see I've just got a really slight edge of the box showing through there, the cardboard. So I kind of wish that I'd put a bit more paper at this end and a bit less at that end. So that's something I'll remember for next time, and that you could do when you're making yours. But to be honest, I'm really happy with the overall look of the box. The other thing that I would make sure to do is to make sure that this one goes on more squarely, because I've got an angle here. But overall, I'm really happy. So I'm just going to tie that up, and that will keep our box closed. Now, I was going to decorate the lid with some of these pieces, but I actually think I like the look just like this, so I'm actually just going to leave it. But you could obviously cut out some of those and decorate the lid if you wanted to. So now I've got this gorgeous little box, and then I can just use that to store a lot of my little embellishments and bits and pieces. So I'll pop all my embellishments in there after I finish filming. And that's our completed project for today. I really hope you enjoyed this project. If you did, I'd appreciate clicking like below, and you can also press subscribe if you'd like to see future videos. If you press the bell button and select all, then YouTube will also notify you when I've got new videos available. All of the projects that we've used to create today's box are listed in the description below, and there's also a host code there. So if you pop my host code into your basket before you check out, then I'll send you a free gift after the end of the month. Thank you so much for joining me today. I hope to see you again soon.